Right, so the Board of Glory. Now, I also want to make a special announcement, which is that I brought my amazing shoes today. So you're going to get a close-up of the fantastic shoes. I knew we were doing close-up shots today. So we've got the sparkliest shoes imaginable. These don't come with any pedal board. You have to get them separately. Right, so the pedal board itself. The brain of the whole thing is this. Now, this is what people's eyes get kind of drawn to here. This is a mixer. And it's a mixer by Bose. I covered up their logo unintentionally. It's called the TS8 by Bose, and it's essentially an 8-channel mixer. Okay, so we've got 8 channels along here, as you can see numbered here, just under the tape, 1 to 8. I'm using 6 of these channels. That is why I got this giant mixer, because I'm using 6 channels. They don't really make 6-channel mixers. It's usually 4 or 8. So that is why I've got an 8-channel mixer. Now the pickups go in. As I mentioned, I got 4 pickups. But as you may have guessed through my description, the piezo and the microphone are wired together. They're wired through that preamp internally. The reason for that is it's somewhat of a backup system. You see, I showed you that when I was playing the piezo, it sounded like a pretty full sound because it's got the piezo and mic together. The reason for that is, imagine the airline loses this and you have to go and play a gig. One single mono jack cable into this guitar and I can get by. And that actually was put to the test a few years ago. Pre-COVID, the Moody Blues were playing at Colston Hall, or the aforementioned Colston Hall, now the Bristol Beacon. And I went to see them. And I had my guitar with me because I was doing a video in the daytime or whatever. And they got stuck on the M4, as people do. And the manager came to me and said, "Do you have your guitar? Can you go and just keep the crowd busy for 25 minutes while they get here?" And I was able to do that with just the guitar, no pedal board, there was no monitors, nothing like that. Michael Eavis from Glastonbury Festival was in the audience, and I was able to kind of bluff somewhat of a show without this stuff. So it's worth saying that, pedal geek people like myself, we like using this stuff, but don't make that your personality. It all starts with the fingers. You need to be able to just play the guitar. And this is fun stuff, everyone has their Christmas list, but please remember to keep it in the fingers to begin with. That's the most important thing, okay? So those 3 pickups get put into the first 3 channels. I labeled them very loosely here, K, M, and P. That's kick, magnetic, and piezo, okay? So we have the kick drum on channel 1, the magnetic on channel 2, and then the piezo and microphone combo on channel 3. So why do I need all these other channels, okay? Well, first of all, the reason it's going into the mixer is so I can EQ and compress the sounds. So if I were to select a channel, let's say the piezo here, and I go to my EQ, I have a bit of EQ on this channel. Okay, I actually have a little bit of compression on this channel. Why? Because this is the percussion. This is where I'm doing my big fat hits and things. I don't want that to come screaming through the PA, so I've got a bit of gentle compression on there. I also have some super specific EQ cuts at super specific frequencies. That's something that this TS8 mixer can do, which is really, really helpful when you're at a sound check and something's feeding back. I can say, "Oh, don't do anything savage, Mr. Soundman. I'm going to go in and select the pickup that's causing the problem and just take out the frequency that's the problem." And then it's easier to create a full sound. So the phase switch on the Black Angel is the cheat sheet, but this is the real nerdy EQ. And over time, I've learned that there are certain frequencies that this guitar doesn't like, so I'm able to cut them at the source, okay? So that's what happens to those pickups. But then why do we have 3 more? Well, the really cool thing about this mixer is we have something called auxiliary outputs, right? So we're able to actually send whatever we want out of a socket into whatever we want and back into its own channel. So for example, I can send my magnetic pickup only out of a socket, out of an output here, into a distortion pedal, for example, put that into its own channel and EQ it and compress it how I like. I put a little noise gate on there, it looks like. I can't remember, this was so long ago. And now my magnetic pickup can have distortion on it without my piezo or kick drum having distortion on it. That's the whole point. I mentioned earlier that I have my acoustic guitar, my electric guitar, my percussion, and my kick drum. Those are the 4 pickups. But if you're putting distortion on a guitar, you only want to put it on the electric guitar. You don't want to put a distortion on your kick drum. You don't want to put a distortion on your drums. You don't want to put a distortion on your acoustic guitar, or else you'll sound like the band Wheatus on Teenage Dirtbag. Remember that? No, I think, yeah, whatever. Old reference. So by doing this aux out, sending the magnetic pickup signal through an aux send into a pedal and back into its own channel, I'm able to do that. So we have distortion on just the magnetic pickup. I got a little volume pedal to fade it in, which I think is quite a nice aesthetic way of doing that live, especially if you're feeding it into a nice reverb. Get this kind of thing. In fact, I do a John Mayer cover live, Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. It's in a different tuning, but I'm playing the chord, and then I get this swell delay happening, and the swell captures the distortion. Creates a really, really nice sound in a room, you know. So that's really cool. And I've basically repeated that loop multiple times. So we have an octave pedal just here. Again, I'm only applying it to the magnetic pickup. So everything's muted except the octave pedal. It's only receiving sound from this pickup. It's not receiving sound on the top strings because this Boss OC-3 is incredible. More information about why that is, you can check out that pedal. But, you know, every time I do a kick drum, I'm not hearing any octave sound. Every time I hit it, you know, when I strum a chord, I'm not hearing an octave sound. I'm just hearing it when I play the bottom strings on the magnetic pickup. So live, when everything's kind of in, we get this kind of, this extra. This extra low sub bass, which when it's through the subwoofers and PA system in a venue, sounds awesome. And then the final channel I have is this. I've got a whammy pedal, again, just on the magnetic pickup. So aux send, whammy, back into this, which I've labeled W, okay? So whammy pedal, we all know what that sounds like. Very simple. But you can hear how it's blended with the guitar. It's not dominating the whole guitar sound, it's in there, but so's a lot of other stuff. My distortion is not being whammied, my distortion is still at the correct octave, you know? You know, so it's like a band, you know? That's what I'm trying to think of here. I'm trying to make this whole rig sound like as many musicians as possible. So we have the bass player, we have the distorted guitar player, we've got Tom Morello at an absolute bargain of probably less than 100 quid, these pedals, they're fantastic. And that's what's happening here, okay? So the mixer is kick pickup, magnetic pickup, piezo pickup, octave, overdrive, and whammy. And that's basically what's happening here. Once that's done, it's just stereo out, delay, looper, reverb. My looper is currently in a Pelican on its way to Miami, so there's a nail file there to represent where the looper would go, okay? So delay, looper, reverb, out, okay? I've actually got the TC Spark just to boost the magnetic pickup before it goes in, because I found that this just responded better when it was a little hotter. So that's why I put that on there. Obviously Digitech make the best whammies. I've tried different whammies actually through some amp modelers, but they just don't track anywhere near as well as the Digitech stuff. This is interesting. This is actually not a distortion pedal, it's an amp simulator pedal by Joyo, J-O-Y-O. And I was turned onto these by John Gom. They're incredibly affordable for anyone looking for a Christmas present for someone they care about but don't care about that much, you know. And it's an amp simulator with the gain just really turned up. So it's basically a Fender Twin with the gain turned up. And the reason for that is if you just have a distortion pedal in a rig that isn't going to an amp with a cabinet, it sounds very thin and digital and nasty. This, in a very, very kind of sledgehammer way, represents a guitar cabinet. So the distortion, I think, sounds good. I've got the treble turned up. You can see on the EQ, the low is cut and the mids and high particularly are boosted. That's so I'm creating something like a top-end distortion that sits next to the low-end sub-bass. You see, I'm still getting a bit of distortion on the bass, but nowhere near as much as the top. And that's, again, a kind of little hack to try and separate the distortion from the bass here. And the bass is the Boss OC-3. I alluded briefly as to why this is the greatest octave pedal out there. They did release the OC-5, which I like as well. However, that has some extra features that I'm not really using on the current touring cycle. So this is better suited for this particular thing. And it basically has a polyphonic mode where if I solo the octave here, I can turn the range knob and get octave on the other strings as well. But by turning this down, the octave disappears from the top strings and only gets applied to the bottom strings, which is perfect when you're playing a polyphonic instrument like the acoustic guitar. So I have it set at about 9 o'clock, more like maybe 8:30 on the clock face, and you get a relatively isolated octave sound. Again, when it's in the mix, it just sounds huge. It sounds awesome. Then this is Old Faithful. This is the Strymon Timeline, which is honestly my favorite pedal in the world, really. I've used this since 2011, and it's the same pedal. It's been on the board the whole time. It's getting almost time for a replacement just because some of the buttons are getting a bit funny. But the cool thing about this is you can just make so many different delays on it. It's just such a nice sound. This is a Pete Thorne sound that he made, which you can find on YouTube. If you type in Pete Thorne Strymon Timeline demo, it's called Ice. And I took it, and it just sounds so nice. I use that in so many songs. I've been able to make some rather interesting reverbs, even though it's a delay pedal. This is actually a stock sound called Verby that they have, where they've just made a delay that's so quick and so long. And the cool thing about the Timeline is when you hold the button down, it swells forever. So there's an element of kind of, you know, organic kind of, you know, and it's got that nice tape kind of decay to it. Some other sounds that I made that I like using, some ping pong delays, you know, so you get some nice little, that's all you get of that for copyright reasons. There's this, you know, just some regular straight delays. That's all you get for that for copyright reasons. Things like that. I love this pedal, absolutely adore it. Strymon Timeline, definitely recommended. And then the reverb, I've been just trying different reverbs, honestly. This one's by Neunaber called Immerse. I really like it. I used it on the past few tours, but I've used TC Electronics Hall of Fame, Strymon, Big Skies, all kinds of stuff. Or sometimes just the desk reverb that the engineer has if they have some nice plugins. And then there's something else here which is a little bit of extra fun. This is nothing really guitar related, but it's a sampler. And I use it when I'm doing, you know, I want an extra moment in a song, a little reverb swell, things like that. At the start of a particular unnamed classic rock song involving the late great Eddie Van Halen, you know, I can put little synthesizers on to back me up, or maybe even I want just some silly stock sounds, you know, just to motivate the audience a little bit if it's a slow night. But that's the board in a nutshell. If you could visualize it with any gear, the pickups have to get mixed. You need your EQ, you need your noise gates, your compression, all that kind of stuff. So you need a mixer to do that. I have a few effects loops in that mixer for some electric guitar specific effects for which you need a magnetic pickup. Piezo just won't sound good. From then on, it's that's all the weird stuff, and then we're back to electric guitar world of delay, loop, reverb, stereo, and then out to front of house. So explained like that, it's quite simple, but this is the super, super detailed version. And I'm really happy we're doing this video because a lot of people after gigs are always asking about the pedal board, and now I can just say, check out this video that I just did with Guitar Guitarist, because there's a lot of information here, okay? If it wasn't for the nail file, Boots, £2, by the way, the best nail files you can get. In here, obviously, I've only have space for a single stomp pedal. However, what I've been doing recently is just extending the board out a bit and using the Boss RC300, which is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, that's the looper I'd recommend to people, the Boss RC300, I think it's called. I actually did a demo of it on my YouTube channel a while ago. But the reason it's so fantastic is there's so many extra features on it that you can use that kind of spur on your creativity, and you have the ability to save sounds on there but warp the time of that as well. So I was actually explaining earlier, when I play with Justin, I play with Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues. I've been kind of with him for about 11 years now. There's a loop that's kind of on that pedal which we use, but I can by tapping, I can program one of the buttons to be a tap tempo, and I can change the audio in real time. So if he's feeling like playing the song a bit faster once I've recorded the loop, I can speed it up to match him. You know what I mean? After the fact. So that's a real world session gig implication of why that's a really good pedal. So I'd highly recommend that for sure. It's currently, again, in a Pelican on the way to Miami right now, so it's not here. But yeah, the Boss, I think it's the RC300. I really hope it's not a different name. I hope it's not the RC500, but it's the one that's red and has 3 buttons on it and is relatively modern. Saying a Boss pedal's red is not helping, is it? But yeah, that's what's there for sure.